statements and opinions by guests of Mysterious Radio are not to be considered as endorsed by sponsors or affiliated networks. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this podcast without the express written consent of Mysterious Radio is strictly prohibited.
Get ready for a night filled with conspiracies, strange places, the paranormal, UFOs, legends, and myths from around the world. With your hosts, K-Town, on Mysterious Radio.
All right, welcome back to another edition of Mysterious Radio. I am your host, K-Town, and if you're one of my newbies, I want to welcome you to the tribe. Please make sure that you subscribe and post a rating and review for us on iTunes. Let me say this too, that I want you to make a habit to go to our website daily, as we will be posting articles to keep you up to date on things that you should know about. And it will constantly be updated throughout the day. And you won't have to go anywhere but right there on the homepage. You just scroll down a little bit and you will see the latest. We will also have upcoming festivals and conventions there that you may want to travel to, and books that we think you should pick up for yourself or someone else that will love to dive deeper into the subjects that we cover here on the show. So plan to go to mysteriousradio.com every day to keep up with the latest. Oh, and if you leave us a rating and review, a 5-star rating and review on iTunes, I am going to send you out a Mysterious Radio decal. Now, for those that have left one and I have your address, I have already sent your decals out. Okay, so as soon as you leave a rating and review on iTunes, I want you to contact me at myitunesreview@gmail.com, or you can contact me on the Mysterious Radio website and say, K-Town, I left you a rating and review, and I want you to screenshot it, okay? Send me the screenshot, and I need your address, and I will get it right out to you. If you join our Patreon community, I want to let you know that we have some killer rewards over there. For those that pledge at a certain level, you will not be disappointed. You get a ton of shows, and we reward you like crazy over there. So if you want to enjoy those benefits, go to patreon.com/Mysterious Radio, or you can join from right there on the Mysterious Radio website. Okay, mysteriousradio.com. All right, so tonight is a show on what will probably be a real shocker for many of you. My special guest was brought to the show by the request of a Patreon supporter. We are going to be discussing aliens, nuclear weapons, satellites, dinosaurs, mass shootings, and more. They call him Crow 777, and he's been on a mission to prove to the masses that we have been deceived. Much of this he has done on his YouTube channel, which is Crow 777 with 2 R's. I encourage you to check out his channel, and also want you to listen to this interview with an open mind. Look into anything that you have a question about on your own, and like I said before, you come to your own conclusion. Are you ready? Let's bring him out. I have an amazing show just for you. People all over the world are starting to question authority in every aspect of what we've been taught and told throughout our whole lives. The internet and the world of social media is making it possible for these truth seekers to reach millions, and their messages are alarming. Tonight, we listen to one man who has taken it upon himself to expose what he says is a blanket of absolute lies and deceit. Welcome, Crow 777. All right, my special guest tonight is Crow 777, and we are going to be discussing all kinds of things tonight, from chemtrails to the moon to flat Earth, and an interesting one about whether or not space is real. Crow, I want to thank you very much for joining me tonight on Mysterious Radio.
Thanks for having me on.
We all know that what we are taught and exposed to from the moment we are born, they shape our perceptions about the world we live in. And you, like many others, realized at some point you said, wait a minute, something's not right. So I want you to take a moment to tell my listeners a little more about yourself and what made you stop and start to look at the world with different eyes.
Well, it's been going on most of my life. I was never a person who just kind of went along with things. I was always questioning. Didn't do real well in school, mostly when I was younger, for that reason. And also I had a father who was one of the smartest men I ever knew. And he constantly challenged me when I was young by saying things that I should not accept, but giving me no clue. And over time, I began to realize I have to work out whether what he just told me is acceptable or not. And all these years later, my father died in 2005. I realized the value in what he did there, getting me to challenge the information I was being given. But, to cut to the chase, I don't think there's really been much of a time in my life when I wasn't questioning why am I doing this? Why am I accepting this? So,
all right, very good. Now, let's first start off by talking about the moon, which is of great interest to many people because there's so many things surrounding it. Some of the claims are unbelievable, but some people swear that they are true, such as underground moon bases, people claiming to capture spacecraft coming and going, and the usual, did we really go to the moon? And even Neil Armstrong reportedly admitted to someone that he saw huge ships when they landed there, and also that he saw some type of reptilian beings watching them. So I have observed some very strange things about the moon myself, but can you take a moment to tell us exactly what you saw?
Well, you must be referring to the 2012 capture of the lunar wave.
Yes.
Roughly in 2012 was the first time that I've got decent cameras to hook up to a pretty big scope. And by chance, I caught what's now known as the 2012 lunar wave. Many people have filmed something at least similar since. And from that point forward, for probably the next 4 years, I filmed almost every time I could nonstop, oftentimes 6, 7, 8 hours a night through my telescope, and came to understand that the moon is much different than we've been told. It's misdescribed. And I can say this, Neil Armstrong, if he was still alive, wherever he may be, should be ashamed of himself. It's absolutely provable that the Apollo missions didn't go to the moon. There is no portion of that supposed history that we can't rip to shreds. And that sets aside the idea that the most important endeavor of people going to a different planetary body in space, supposedly, all the video is lost, all the telemetry is lost, no one knows where it went. And by the way, when it was shown to the public on television in 1969, it was a camera filming off a black and white TV tube because NASA had the guts to tell everyone they didn't have the technology in place to broadcast for television. It's all nonsense, and it's provable nonsense for anyone who wants to look at it logically.
Okay, very good. Now, let's dive a little deeper into that. Now, you said that no one essentially has been outside this atmosphere. Is that what you're saying?
Yep, that's my view. I filmed a lot of things. Anyone could go to my YouTube channel back to the old clips that are pretty much telescope-based clips that cover roughly 4 years. I filmed any number of things, and people love to come say they're UFOs and this, that, and the other thing, but I was not content. I challenged what I was filming. I even got an optics expert to figure out what the value of a pixel was with the exact camera and telescope I was using, and then figure out how big these things would be at different distances. There is nothing that I filmed that is outside of Earth's atmosphere. In my view, nothing has ever gone outside of Earth's atmosphere. There's some sort of a hard, fast boundary. A lot of people like to say dome. They like to say a lot of things, but I'm not sure that it's helpful to make claims when you can't prove it out. But I will say this, if you go to the oldest texts, you will be told over and over and over that the sun is electric and the moon is magnetic. If you take these ideas a little further in these old texts, the idea is there's a superheated plasma boundary. And this could be why when you see movies, they act like something coming back into the atmosphere is burning up. Whatever it is, space, all of it is misdescribed and lied about. We broke down the idea of people getting on rockets. You're told a rocket has to go basically 5 miles a second to escape so-called Earth's gravity. A rifle bullet goes just over half a mile a second, and yet a rocket goes 5 miles a second. So when next time you see a picture of Russian cosmonauts with their little fuzzy stuffed animals swinging like fuzzy dice on the rear view mirror, you should understand those guys are supposedly going 5 miles a second. You tell me what that kind of G-force would be. I was in the Marine Corps. I knew jet pilots who get a hell of a lot less G-force, and they explain the special suit and the training they have to go through to not pass out from just a few Gs, and that's nowhere near 5 miles a second.
All right, so that is interesting. So do you think the moon is essentially a projection of some type?
Well, here's the thing. When I first filmed the lunar wave and tried to take it apart, I made the mistake of trying to describe it as a hologram. Too bad I did that. Wish I hadn't. So then I moved on and started to call it a facade, and it was the same problem. So then I got a little bit smarter and realized that we really don't have the descriptive language. So this is what I say. The moon is much closer than we've been told. It is not over 250,000 miles away from it, and it is not a rock in space. In my view, no one could go there or set a boot on it if they wanted to. And the idea that there's aliens there, I'm pretty versed in telescope use. So, I've filmed any number of things. People can go look. If you take it from a logical, no-nonsense standpoint, you do things like get optics experts, you begin to realize that everything that's being filmed is very close to us. After all, with the best telescope system I had at my disposal, and I had some damn good systems, even up to 12 inches with 36 megapixel cameras, the best resolution I could get, if the moon was in fact at 340,000 or over 250,000 miles away, was 1 pixel would resolve half a mile. And this proves all these people out there filming with lesser equipment, they're not filming anything that is that far away. They couldn't. The resolution of what they were using could not capture things like this. Again, my best system, a single pixel at roughly 250,000 miles would be half a mile, and these were very high-tech tools. So someone with a P900 or a lesser telescope, they simply don't have the resolution to claim they're filming something at that distance. And that sets aside the fact that, the moon is not that far away from us.
Okay, all right. You are actually the second guest I've had on the show to say that. What are we looking at here? I mean, just put it out there. What is it? What are we looking at?
While space is misdescribed, I have surmised that it may be, some kind of liquid. But for people out there, there's an old woodcut that almost everyone has seen, and it's by a guy named Flamel, where a little man is poking his head out of Earth's atmosphere to try to see what's beyond. There's a lot encoded in that image. It has to do with alchemy and other things, the lifting of the human mind, meditation, all these ideas to get beyond what I call the hard, fast boundary that prevents people or machines from leaving this closed system we call Earth. Go look it up. It's a woodcut by Flamel. It's a little man poking his head out. I think that's one of the most helpful things I've seen for people to begin to think about it. The problem is right now there's a whole fight going on in the world about whether the Earth is round or flat or what it is. And it's not helping people because they get caught up in these arguments. I've said for a long time, this world is flat out misdescribed. There are likely land masses that you know nothing about. You can prove that every map that hung in your high school is wrong. Almost every high school has a Mercator projection. Go compare a Mercator to a Gall Peters, to a Peters, to any number of projections. They are all different. This problem should have went away the moment we took a picture of Earth from space, which has never happened. We can take every single image of supposed Earth from space and we can take it apart and prove that it's nonsense. And anyone who compares them will realize the land masses have changed size and any number of problems. We even know the 2002 blue marble image. We know the name of the artist who made it, and he said something like, NASA gave me data, so I made this picture to look like the world like I thought it should look. It's all nonsense. And this is the problem. People need to set aside what they've been told and go back to firsthand observation.
What you're describing, though, you are essentially describing a dome-like structure, and it almost seems like it's a projection. I mean, it's the simplest way I know to put it. So you're kind of describing a flat Earth. I think you are.
I don't agree with a lot of the things the flat Earth people say. I think it's good that they're challenging, but there's a lot of people in that community that aren't being real helpful. What I say is, if you take the word planet and you remove the T, that's where we are. We're living on a plane of existence. And the problem with that is it's a bit metaphysical. The modern mind wants more detail, but that's the best we can do right now. Until someone gets a very good camera and gets it way the hell up with a balloon or something else on a clear day and gets good shots back down, we're all just kind of guessing. But we do know some things. We know that there are 50-some nations guarding the border to Antarctica. We know that Byrd claimed that Antarctica is bigger than the United States and Mexico put together, and it is covered with endless resources. So here in the 2000s, when's the last time anyone ever saw a picture of the interior of Antarctica? What you've seen is Anthony Bourdain take his cheesy film crew down there and hit the edge of the coast, supposedly. What you've seen is the Prince of Britain stand by that ridiculous silver ball. It's all a shell game, and it's been shown to be a shell game. The problem is to understand the lie is not to give you a new map, and that's kind of where we are right now.
All right, so let's go ahead and put this to bed. You believe that the Earth indeed is not round.
I don't accept the Copernican spinning models or any of it. And anyone who wants to go back to the oldest texts, one of the things I'm reading currently is Manilius, which is supposed to be some of the oldest astrological writing. Hard to tell when it came into existence because we have a jacked up calendar, but even in the Manilius writings, he's looking further back at Ptolemy. Then when you get up into the 17 and 1800s, you'll see people talking, alchemists, natural scientists, astronomers of the day describing what's going on above your head, which harkens back to the Flamel woodcut I told people to look up. And they will tell you flat out in some of these texts, what we have just said works on a plane or with a globe. That's a strange thing to say. We're in a plane of existence, and the reason I choose that word very carefully is because most of what we see is an illusion. I have said over and over and over that when we look up and we see things like planets, and it's an illusory view. I'm not saying that it's fake. It's not some technological wonder the CIA built. I don't accept these things, but it is a bit like looking through a kaleidoscope. When you look through a kaleidoscope, the kaleidoscope is real, the bits of glass are real, but the image it gives you is illusory, and that's what we are experiencing. And this was well defined hundreds of years ago, and these things were well known. It's just the onset of modern science that has moved so far away from the natural world and tried to basically make an artificial world that has us all confused at this point. The older people knew the truth.
Okay. All right, so I'm assuming you think the government obviously knows this, and I'm wondering if you think they found out when they started testing or firing the nuclear weapons straight up in the atmosphere during Operation Fishbowl.
Nuclear weapons do not exist as they're described. It's all nonsense. It's the misuse of alchemy to transmute the world mind into fear-based porn. One of the things about alchemical science is they're tightly tied to Mercury. Mercury, the symbol for Mercury, holds the crossroads idea in it. At the Bikini Atoll, the name of that operation was Crossroads. There's your alchemical tie-in. It's all provably false. There has never been a time when plants, people, and animals did not live at Hiroshima before, during, or after the supposed event. This proves beyond the shadow of a doubt that the description of nuclear weapons in the way they have been described to us is false. The water would be polluted, all the cells in the bodies of either of those three kingdoms of living things would be destroyed. The same goes true for the Bikini Atoll. People should go listen to our no, don't duck and cover anymore, no nukes. These things are fallacies. And not only that, there are people out there in the world like Galen Windsor, who went around the world in the 70s with supposed radioactive elements, and he ate them, trying to show people the lie. People can still look up Galen Windsor online. He was trying to tell people the truth. Nukes do not exist as described.
So what's the purpose? What's the purpose of the deception?
Fear porn, divide and conquer. You use fear, you divide people. Look what Trump's doing with South Korea right now. This whole charade about nuclear weapons, they don't exist. You see, we can prove that nuclear weapons do not exist as described. And yet here we still have this narrative going on and on and on. Oh my God, North Korea is going to nuke the West Coast. It's all nonsense. It's just fear porn. It keeps everyone distracted and controllable and divided. I mean, think about the country of Korea. The southern part of Korea wants to get back with the North because they still have family members up there. But look, in fact, what the powers that be have done. They've divided the country. They've created this supposed puppet regime where no one can go in and see, except people like Dennis Rodman, which should tell everybody something about the reality of what they're being shown. Frickin' Dennis Rodman was the big guy who was the representative of the United States that went in there not too long. It's all a shell game. And this is how the world has been ruled, with lies, deception, fear porn, any number of things to keep people off balance, to keep them afraid. These are the tools of rulers. Okay.
I want to know about the SpaceX launch. When they send these up in the air, they have to come down somewhere. How come people don't see that?
Because they're coming down in the ocean. And if you look carefully at where launches happen, I mean, look at the whole Russian thing. Why did all of a sudden America walk away from space travel, the next big frontier, and hand it over to Russia? And everyone had to go fly up with Russian cosmonauts. You want to know why? Because in Russia, they could put the launch pad in the middle of nowhere where they could do whatever they want and tell you whatever they want. Endless video of astronauts in space has been taken apart. There has never been a person in what they call space. Space itself is misdescribed. And not only that, these rocket launches, you know where they're all going? They're going into the ocean. Go look at all the launch pads you will ever see, and they're almost all right there over the ocean. But there is a commonality that you can also observe in almost every bit of film you'll ever see. You see the rocket go up, you see it begin to arc, and then the video cuts. Well, that's not the whole show. I have tools that could follow that rocket for a long, long time. Why have we never seen anything burning up back into the atmosphere? Why have we never seen anything leaving our atmosphere? Why do we never see a complete launch doing the whole deed all the way out to space? And if you want to really put a cherry on top, we're told, well, a few years ago, we were told there was somewhere between 20 and 30,000 satellites. They changed that narrative. If you look on Google now, it's 2,500. But my point is, how come an astronaut on the supposed ISS never poked a camera out the window to show us all these thousands of amazing satellites doing what amazing satellites do? And I'll tell you why. Because satellites don't exist either as they are described. And if you go look at my video, you'll see all the things that I shot in our atmosphere. They're like little round black things. They're up there all the time, and they're probably doing the job of what you've been told satellites do, if I had to guess, and that is a guess.
Okay. So where do you think the space shuttle's coming down at?
Well, the space shuttle, we see it land all the time, right? It goes up and it lands somewhere different. Usually they launch from one place, and quite often they'll land it in California or someone else. You've seen it land. It's the rockets that we're talking about here. And, even with the space shuttle launch, for a long time, the boosters would fall off. Where did they go? Into the ocean. There was actually an article not too long ago about a guy off the coast of Florida who asked permission to go to this special part of the Florida coast no one can go because NASA won't let you go there. He was looking for supposed sunken ships from one of the kings of Europe. And he gets there, and what's he find? At first, the article, in his words, describes hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of rocket bodies poking out of the water. And then he uses the descriptive term thousands and thousands and thousands. And he states what he's doing at this point is GPSing them all so he can give the data back to NASA so that it might be valuable at some point. And he's talking about full rocket bodies, engines, everything else in one of these articles that we were just reading recently. And the thing here is what they're trying to tell you is this has been going on since the 50s, and this is the rocket graveyard. At one point, he literally describes thousands and thousands and thousands, so many that he couldn't possibly GPS them all. Rockets end up in the ocean. That's where they go. And by the way, I already told you the speed rockets are supposed to travel to escape supposed Earth's gravity. It's 5 miles a second. Could a person get on the head of a 30-06 bullet? Could a person's body withstand that? Well, that 30-06 bullet is going roughly just over half a mile a second. A rocket is going 5 miles a second. It's all nonsense when you logically work it out.
All right. My special guest tonight is Crow 777, and I will have more for you when we return right after this. All right, we're back. And now I want to know what you think about these people coming forward saying that they are involved in the secret space program and the government's working with aliens and they've been involved with reverse engineering of UFOs. I want to know what you think about people coming forward saying that.
Sure. Maybe we should just talk about flowers and chickens. I'll say poppycock. This is nonsense. There is no substantive evidence to support the alien idea because it's all built off the Roswell idea. And the Roswell idea, which happened on the 33rd parallel, hint, 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 and they used the new coined term that happened a few weeks before, flying saucers, hint, hint, hint. It's all been debunked. It's just nonsense. And so the modern ufology agenda is actually claimed by the Tavistock Institute. And I'm not saying, I can't tell you what might be in a universe if there is such a place in whatever space is. But what I am telling you is what you get told through the controlled media is just nonsense. And so many people are catching on to the nonsense of rockets and the nonsense of the ISS and the nonsense of the moon landing that of course they're going to roll out the secret space program because they can say anything they want, right? It's secret. And if it's secret, then how come you're talking about it? And if it's secret, why are you talking about aliens? And if you're going to talk about aliens, why don't you produce some actual evidence that matters? Like, how about some great HD video of one of your secret aliens shaking your hand and talking with you? It's all nonsense. It leads the world into a fantasy-based reality. Two overarching corporations own almost all information systems. Anyone listening right now has to be aware of the censorship that has been brought to bear on social media and YouTube. Why is that happening? You want to know why it's happening? Because too many of us have caught on to the shell game. So they have to shut up people who are telling the truth. Right now, the European Union has taken over the internet. The European Union is an unelected body, basically. Right now, they own the guidelines for my media server, for PayPal, for any credit card gateway, for any social media. The European Union, that unelected body, is dictating to the United States how the internet can be used based on the false idea of terrorism. That's what's going on. So why are all these things happening? Why the censorship? Why does the EU need to come make all these rules and enforce censorship and do all these things? I'll tell you why. Because too many people have woken up to the game. And it's basically that simple. And any person who can just set aside all the things they've heard their whole life and observe with their own two eyes, they will quickly catch on, just like so many have at this point.
If what you say is true about living in a dome-like structure, and we look at what the Bible says, then, and then also if we take into account what some very well-respected ufologists say about UFOs and aliens and that they are demonic in nature, all of this would make perfect sense to me because they say Satan is the prince of power in the air. Now, I want to ask you this. I know you keep up with a lot of different things going on in the news and such, and some people are talking about the strange towers in New York City that people are starting to notice. Have you looked at that any, or do you know anything about that?
Yeah, I did a show with Billy Ray Valentine on TFR, I don't know, a week or two ago, and he lives in New York, actually. People, I guess, are starting to, or have been asking the authorities in New York what that's about, and they've been basically told, screw you, it's Homeland Security, none of your business, but everyone's reasonably sure it has to do with surveillance in the 5G network. And I think most people listening have heard over and over and over that millimeter waves or the 5G network are going to be terrible for the human body.
Okay. Let's talk about chemtrails. You do talk about that as well, and I see them here all the time. It's just very strange what they do. Some of these planes are look to me at times like they're flying straight up in the air. I don't know what that's about, but it usually rains shortly after they start doing this. So I want to know what you think is going on with these chemtrails.
And we don't think, we know. We've found all the documents. People like Matt Landman, whose whole career out there has been following chemtrails, trying to bring awareness. We have the documents that prove they've been at it for a long time. And not too long ago, when people talked about chemtrails, they were told they were crazy and they needed to quit smoking peyote. But recently, the narrative changed, where the narrative now is, yeah, we've been doing it, but we can't stop because global warming's happening and the world's going to burn up. They're admitting it openly now. So all the way back in the 2000s when I was filming this stuff, trying to show people this is not normal, what I can tell you now is your weather is scheduled. It's not predicted or guessed about. It's scheduled. You see those planes above your head, that is not normal. So many people have been conned into thinking they're contrails, but people who are my age can remember those trails did not exist in the sky prior to somewhere in the mid-90s, and there wasn't that many of them there. Sometime around the 2000s, it started to get ubiquitous, and now there is nary a place you can go in the civilized world where you will not see what the chem planes are doing, aerosol injection, with heavy metals too. Always 3 heavy metals that are associated with it.
Okay, so for what purpose? To make us sick, to kill us, what?
Well, that's a big question. You know, for people who want a more complete answer than I can give you here on this short interview that we're doing, you should go look up Matt Landman. He made a movie called Frankenskies, and he has done a heck of a job tracking down all the patents and all the statements and all the official press releases and everything else that prove flat out this is not an arguable thing. Anyone who says chemtrails are not real just doesn't understand what's going on. That it's that simple. But for one, they're controlling weather. The next time you see a massive hurricane hit somewhere, look up in the sky and understand that aerosol injection was going on. Then look at people like Patrick Roddy, who followed the EMF pulsing into these metals they've sprayed into the sky. Part of it's weather control. They're also reducing the amount of sunlight that's hitting our world. And sunlight's an important thing for the health of people, plants, everything else. But then when you find strontium, barium, and aluminums in it, you can understand that that is not good for people. A lot of people like to say chemtrails are here to kill us. And I guess I'm not going to go down that fear porn road, but I will certainly tell you these types of heavy metals are not good for you. Look at Alzheimer's. You know, one of the main things they're starting to say about Alzheimer's is it's because of aluminum accumulation in your brain. One of the things they're spraying up there is aluminum. So you do the math on it. But anyone who truly wants to know go look up Patrick Roddy online in San Francisco on YouTube, or go look up Matt Landman, who is a full-time activist who does nothing with his life except get people to try to understand what's going on in the skies above.
Okay. Now, someone sent a question in wanting to know more about what you talk about as far as dinosaurs are concerned. Can you tell us what you found out about that?
Dinosaurs are another myth that we've all been fooled into through Hollywood movies and all the toys and books we've had since we were kids. What got me going on it was I saw some engineers talking about how it was impossible for something that big to work. The legs wouldn't support them, the guts would fall out the bottom. Just from an engineering standpoint, it couldn't work. And so I started looking. And what I found, once I quit listening to all the nonsense we get told in this world and investigated with my own brain and my own 2 eyes, was that dinosaurs were invented by a servant of royalty, a knight of the British House. And he described dinosaurs before there was ever a shred, not a toenail, not a bone, not in anything. He invented dinosaurs. And then shortly after he invented them, we started to find all these supposed bones and everything else. Dinosaurs never existed in this world. There's an episode up on my channel that people can go look that goes thoroughly into this. We do the whole timeline. We go through the thing called the Bone Wars, and we demonstrate that a servant of the royal family of Britain called a knight invented it out of thin air.
That's the first time I've ever heard of that. That's very, very interesting. Now, I want to know, what's been the most controversial thing you've ever discussed on your channel?
Ironically enough, we say so many things that could be controversial, but the thing that pissed off the powers that be the worst was the false flag, all the bogus shootings that go on. When my channel got shut down, we addressed the false shooting in Las Vegas, Nevada, that so many remember, where the shooter was named after the demon in Macbeth. Paddock was his name. That was the familiar demon pulled from Macbeth. We took that apart to show people that it's nonsense. Unfortunately, too many people think video is actual evidence, when in the modern day, video doesn't mean anything. And not only that, so many people see a video and they don't examine what they are being shown. But the biggest thing that has caused the most ruckus is that we have pointed out that these shootings and all this false gun violence is just false flags, fear porn. And that's what's caused the most trouble, which is ironic, because you might think that if you said the moon landing was fake, or dinosaurs, or you pointed out that the powers that be have an endless budget and are spraying the sky all over the world with chemtrails, that these might be things that piss them off. But what actually gets their goat is when you show their fake gun violence events. The other day I saw a stat that claimed, get this, how does an adult human mind accept this? For the last 3 weeks or 3 years, there has been a school shooting once a week. For the last 3 years. I mean, come on, man. When are people going to grow up and quit accepting this fear porn and challenge it? It's all you got to do. Challenge it. Look for the problems. Look for the issues with the narrative. There is one thing that is true in this world, and no matter who is in control, it will never change. A person, a human being, cannot make a false thing true or a true thing false. And so that means that when you're presented with all this fear porn, if you simply challenge it with your adult human mind, you will quickly see what is going on.
Now, the shooting in Florida, false flag or no?
False flag.
What convinces you of that?
So many people their minds get stuck in the details. That's how they never come to resolution. You need to step back, look at the whole event, and recognize it for what it is. Anyone who wants to do the investigative work, there are endless videos, well, getting to be fewer and fewer because of censorship. And why would that be? Why would it be that when people are pointing out these things are false, they get censored? You see, if they were wrong, they would just be a crazy person, right? And when does a crazy person ever get taken seriously? The fact that all this is getting censored tells you something very important about these events. The news and the media are controlled by basically two overarching corporations that will probably soon be one, but that doesn't even matter because all the board members on both of those corporations sit on higher organizations like the Club of Rome, TFR, all these types of things that all governments and rulers that are all a part of. So basically, even though there's two overarching corporations, the people who sit on those boards are all in a big boys club up above that. Well, I guess it's a boys and girls club now at this point. My point is this, is the news is not here to inform you. It's here to program you. It's what it is. We are living in the time of a world takeover. That's all there is to it. Look up at your sky. Look at the censorship online. Look at how many people can afford to go to higher education. Look what it costs to own a house. Look at all the things that have controlled and diminished the lives of people in the West. And the one common denominator is overarching control. We're headed for an idiocracy. We are headed for one group of people, God knows where, probably in Europe somewhere, controlling everything. Already the European Union dictates what we can do online. Who the hell is the European Union to tell an American anything? I would ask. But this is where we're going. If you want to argue about it and just act like you know something without investigation, that's too bad, because we need many more minds than we have to start to recognize what's going on in this world.
No one should just take things for face value, and they need to do their own research, and I preach that all the time on my show. Now, my last question for you is about transhumanism. Is that real or made up, or what do you think?
First time transhumanism was ever brought up was probably used with terms like cybernetic. This was way back, and maybe as far back as the 30s. Many of these ideas were paired off with the Tavistock Institute, who is responsible for socially engineering so much of the world, creating the 60s drug movement, ufology, all these things that they claim, Greenpeace, the wildlife fund, all these things they're using to control humanity. Cybernetics is real. And if you don't understand, go look at a movie that's coming out projecting where we're headed, like Ready Player One. It shows that we're about to get sucked in. It doesn't go all the way to show technology embedded into the human body, but this has been a goal since all the way back in the 40s. Go back and look at the backlog of Crow777radio.com episodes with Jason Lindgren and I, and we lay it out verbatim. What they said they were doing, what they wanted to do, and what they wanted to accomplish. Basically, what it comes down to is the people that run our world, whoever they may be. We do have good idea of who some of the groups are. They want to be gods of this place. But you see, they can't be gods of the natural world. So what they are doing is kind of a Luciferian mindset where they are creating an artificial world with technology because they can, in fact, control the technology, the artificial world. So when everything is going online, like money, Bitcoin, which will be the biggest loss of freedom in all of human existence, when Bitcoin becomes the main thing, at that moment, we will have lost more freedom than any other event in the history of human beings. But when it all goes online, then in fact, these people, these small corporations, who created a straw man identity for each person listening when they were born that they don't even know about, a corporate straw man that charades around being traded as chattel with your name in capital letters. These corporations will control that artificial reality, and it does push towards what was initially called cybernetics and later transhumanism, because when that happens, their false artificial technology will in fact begin to remove the natural man or woman.
All right. Now, this has been an interesting conversation. I want you to take a moment to tell my listeners where they can find more information about you and your show.
All right. Before I do that, I just would urge everyone listening, when you haven't heard some of the things I've said, it seems outlandish. Don't accept anything I've said here, but please go out and investigate with your adult higher mind, and you will see you have not been lied to here. You can find my work on Crow 777 on YouTube, as long as that channel is allowed to exist. It's already been closed once. It's CRROW 777. My podcast is my own private site where free speech rules. We say whatever we want there, free of censorship. That is crow777radio.com. And over there, we say anything we want. For those who want announcements about what's going on, you can find Crow 777 on Twitter. There's going to be a lot more things out there with my name on it because the search engines are beginning to censor us so hard. But there it all is, and I want to thank you again for having me on. I appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. Many blessings to you, and I appreciate your time.
I hope you have a happy, healthy, and higher-minded year ahead.
All right, that's all the time we have for this one. I want to thank Crow 777 for joining me again. You can find out more about him and his YouTube channel by going to Crow with 2 R's 777, and his website is crow777radio.com. You can get immediate access to more editions about cryptids, true hauntings, conspiracies, UFOs, aliens, ancient history, true crime, and more by becoming a Patreon on Patreon. It's very easy to do. Just go to mysteriousradio.com right now to sign up. I want to thank my producer tonight, Kim, and the Mysterious Radio team. I am your host, K-Town. Have a great night, and I will see you next time on Mysterious Radio.
Like the show? Get more Mysterious Radio on our website. And don't forget to visit our Twitter and Facebook page.